Namaste, everyone. Welcome to the Pranic Healing podcast. On today's episode, we have Bill Hencke. Bill is a Pranic Healer and Yogi practitioner from the West Coast in California. And I'm so excited to have Bill on because he's going to talk about his journey in Pranic Healing, which is really amazing, really inspiring on how he started in more of the firefighting and paramedic field and switching to full-time pranic healing. And hopefully his story will inspire many of you to look into pranic healing and how you can serve through this practice. So please welcome Bill.
Thank you, Dr. Jason. It's a pleasure to be here. I certainly appreciate the invitation. And uh, one of the things that I really think is great about being on here today is really just help get the word out about what is possible in pranic healing and in pranic healing as a profession. I'm proud to say now that my current job is as a professional pranic healer, and that is thanks in great part to the work that Master Glenn is doing in getting us, set onto the pathway to success in taking pranic healing to a level of professionalism beyond just something that you learn and do as a passing fancy, that maybe you just do it for yourself or your family, but you don't really make it anything formal. His mission now is to make it formal. And that is something that I resonated very quickly with because it's something I wanted to do for a long time. But it wasn't meant to be earlier than this. In fact, many of
Yeah.
my other experienced pranic healing friends told me, hey, slow down. You're not ready to do this full time. And that was excellent advice. I
Yeah.
was a firefighter paramedic and served 27 years on the fire department as a full-time career firefighter paramedic. I did about 7 years of volunteer work before that in the fire department, so I feel like it was a total of 34 years. But I'm very fortunate that I was able to retire from that profession and transition into pranic healing.
Yeah.
Now,
We'll
that
definitely get into all of that, Bill. Yeah, if you don't mind, yeah, that's definitely going to be the theme for our conversation. And you kind of very generously highlighted all of that. So, just for our audience, very quickly, Bill, how did you hear about pranic healing, and how did you start? Because it sounds like again you're doing it full time now, but the audience is curious. How did it happen? Like, what inspired you and to inspire you to continue doing this down this path?
Well, I'm actually happy to share that part of the story because I am one of those that did not believe in pranic healing. Even when I originally was introduced to it, I was extremely skeptical, and I was 100% sure that would never work. So as far as how I got into it was really by accident. I was going through some job stress early on in my career, and just by coincidence, there was a magazine that came to my house with community classes that were being taught in my city. And there was a meditation class coming up, and it said, meditation, it's great for anxiety, it's great for stress, simple to learn, you can do it anywhere. And I thought, you know what? I need to learn how to meditate. This is classes for me. And so I took the class, and the lady teaching the class was a pranic healer. She was actually a pranic healing instructor, and she told us about pranic healing. She even demonstrated pranic healing. One of the ladies in class had some shoulder pain, and the lady teaching waved her hand, and the lady said, oh, that feels so good. And I was like, I don't think so. I'm giving two thumbs down on that. There's no way you can expect me to believe that you waved your hand and made that pain go away. So to say I was skeptical early on is an understatement. But the seed was planted. And so as I continued to work as a paramedic, I actually saw a lot of things in the field that medicine just couldn't explain according to my training. And I was actually also very intrigued by the process of people dying and just watching them die and wondering where did they go. Like that just really kind of fascinated me because I knew they went somewhere, but I didn't know. And so in that started to study other things and started to open my mind. And the more I learned and opened my mind, the more receptive I came to the possibility that pranic healing might actually work. And about a year after that original experience I had with my wife, She was having a physical health condition that was extremely painful 24 hours a day, and the doctors couldn't figure out what was wrong. They told us everything looked good. They couldn't find anything to treat. And so I thought, well, what do we do now? Well, that lady teaching about pranic healing said that it can work sometimes when the doctors don't know what to do. And so I figured that's where we are right now. The doctors don't know what to do, and we need some help. So I went online, I Google searched Pranic Healing, and Master Ko came up teaching in Los Angeles. And I figured I'll take the class, and if it helps, it'll be worth it. And if it doesn't help, then no harm, no foul. So that was it. That was the reason why I started. And it's interesting because I don't remember Master Ko sharing this when I took the first class. But later on, he told us that he couldn't feel energy for like the first 4 years that he was a pranic healer. And so when I was in my class, I couldn't feel a thing. I couldn't feel the aura. I couldn't, scan. But when I did the technique on my wife at home, she started feeling better. And so I even figured at that time, well, it's all in her head. It's all placebo effect. This didn't do anything. She just thinks it did something, so at least she feels better. But really, the turning point for me was with her family. They had some medical conditions and they started asking me to do the healing on them. And so as I was doing the healing on them, they had things that I could actually witness and observe: range of motion, discoloration, swelling going away within minutes. And when I saw that, I was like, wait a minute, I just saw that and that worked.
Wow. Thank you so much, Bill, for that excellent recap of, again, how you got started. And like you said, you came from a very professional background. And, again, you were a very big skeptic, which skepticism is good. It is healthy to make sure, things work. I myself was kind of skeptical too. I'm like, oh wait, you just wave your hands too, and this would just disappear. But like you said, you saw the evidence, even though you couldn't feel the energy in the class right away. But changes were happening, and so much so that you had, your friends and family member reaching out to you for healings. Again, with for things that traditional conventional medicine, right, the standard medical approach, might not be so helpful in truly addressing. So that's incredible, and I love the reference to Master Ko. You mentioned Master Glenn, Master Ko. These are one of the 8 master pranic healers in the world, directly studied under the founder, Grandmaster Choa Kok Sui of pranic healing. And Master Ko's story, like you mentioned, he couldn't feel anything, right? And for 4 years, like you said, and he was the one teaching the class, right, in those first 4 years. So it's so interesting to have the students feel it, but the teacher doesn't even feel it as well. So it just lends it to the amazing system that Master Choa Kok Sui has developed. Because in the class, we learned that you don't need to necessarily feel it for it to work, right? And like for yourself, you saw the changes in range of motion, right? Changes physically changing in front of your eyes. So that's really, really inspiring. And for skeptical people initially, like the both of us, that's really inspiring. And so thank you for sharing that. And yeah, so I guess for the next part, we talked about sort of your origin story, and now kind of talk to us, Bill, about what made you decide to keep going in pranic healing. So it sounded like you had this initial success, and because there's more to pranic healing just to level one, as we know. But what inspired you to continue, and which leads to my next question: is what inspired you to now go full time, which is, you referenced it in the beginning. It is a big jump.
It's a big jump, and I feel like it's been a progression. For sure, it's been a process. When I started out, I really had no intention of ever doing this as a full time, as a business. That was never my intention when I started. I had one purpose, and that was to help my wife. Um, when I started working on her family, I was like, well, interesting. I mean, it really looks like it's working, but at that time, I was still so new. I was, still not like super into it, like not like I was captivated right off the bat. But here's what happened. When I started seeing the improvements that I was seeing, it took a long time to do that. After taking basic level one pranic healing, it took a while. And I thought, man, I just don't have the time. This is working kind of good, but I don't have this kind of time. Well, luckily, level 2 and 3 were being taught pretty soon. So I figured maybe if I take those classes, I'll learn a little bit more. And as I took those classes, sure enough, the healing time got shorter and I was able to see better results even faster. And as that was happening, just by word of mouth, as my wife's family started telling their friends about it, and more people started hitting me up like, hey, they said you fixed your knee. Can you work on my shoulder? And now they asking me to fix their back. As I started seeing those things happen more quickly, for one, and then just those simple healings as a paramedic, I would take them to the hospital and they'd get a shot of Toradol, or they'd get some pain meds or something. And then these patients would come back and then they'd call again a week later because they were still in pain, and I'm taking them back. And I know these people on a first name basis now. And I just saw that the medical system, for all the wonderful things it can do, it has its limitations. And I started seeing that pranic healing was blowing through those limitations. Like all of a sudden, people with chronic pain were getting a healing or two, and then it was gone and not coming back. And I saw, like, wow, wait a minute, this is far superseding what I'm seeing in medicine. And I'm not against medicine at all, but I'm also in a favor of what really works. And so as I was seeing the results that I was getting in pranic healing, I thought this truly is amazing and extremely effective, non-invasive, so it's very, safe for people to use. And let's just say that lit an inspiring fire under me that I was like, okay, I got to take every class. And my question to other healers was, how can I get to be a better healer? And they all said, you got to take Arhatic yoga. Now, Arhatic yoga was never, let's just say, not even a glimmer in my eye of doing a spiritual practice, but that's all I needed to hear. Take Arhatic yoga, do better healing. So I took the class. And as that led me onto a whole different journey that I found just very, very like inspiring to myself, and explained a lot of the things I saw in the field as far as suffering, trauma to basically, I saw a lot of trauma to innocent, pediatric patients. And that's something that really was affecting me in my head. But after taking Arhatic yoga, it explained all of that in a way that I could really wrap my head around and come to accept. And so really, I'd say the most inspiring thing wasn't what I was doing for other people, but what was happening for myself, the way that it was helping to make my own emotional state more stable. And so I got so, like, I would just say I got so inspired to share this with others. It was my desire to share this with the world that made me go out and start doing it more. And then early on at one of the Arhatic retreats, I was talking with a gentleman who had a pranic healing experience that cured his throat cancer. And we got to talking, and he said, are you taking money for your sessions? And I said, no, if people want to give a donation. And he pretty much smacked me upside the head and said, if you're getting these kind of results with your healing work, you need to be out charging for it and doing this healing work. He said, I wouldn't have survived if it wasn't for a pranic healer that was charging money and doing healing sessions for me. And so that was early on, and so that the seed was planted that maybe I would do this someday. But really, two things happened. Like, I was so busy at work on the fire department, I didn't have much time off. And then on that limited time off, I was so busy doing healings, I just felt like it's like too much on the plate. So fortunately, I was at a point in my career where I was eligible to take early retirement. And I figured, if I wasn't working so much on the fire department, but I'm doing all these great healings, what if I had so much more time to do more healings? And really, that was, it just made sense. It had to make sense to me. And at that point, it made sense.
Yeah. Well, I think that your path, Bill, is the path that not even pranic healers, like all healers in general, struggle with. The challenges is the concept of energy exchange, right? That for every action that you give to a person, as we know with the law of karma, it comes back to you. But as we know, for healing, right, especially healing cases that are more severe, like cancer, when the patient pays the healer, actually the healing becomes more effective. And we know that in Pranic Healing, as Master Cho has said, because everything is an energy exchange. When you paid forward for your healing, that payment is a form of energy that you also receive back. So, and like you said, I think a lot of people are, currently are in your situation that you mentioned in the past, where they might have a full-time job and or maybe thinking about doing pranic healing, maybe not more part-time but more full-time too. And that is a conversation that is not so well understood, because energy healing, pranic healing, is not a traditional 9 to 5. And we spoke about, as you spoke out in the beginning with pranic healing as a profession, how that's such a powerful initiative started by Master Glenn and many other great pranic healers to help us make that transition to become a full-time healer. And like you said, you were so busy as a firefighter, and what would happen if you had all this free time to attend to more of your busy healings, the things that you wanted to do. And that's amazing, because I think about your story and how far you've come, right? From being a very strong skeptic to now a person that is, in it full time, doing it every day, which is really inspiring for many of us. And to know that it is possible, right, to do this full time. You just need to have the right, preparation, training, education, all that to help us be successful. And to kind of get an understanding, Bill, I think a lot of people say, like, oh, I'm a full time healer, right? I do this full time, but it might mean a little different for every person, right? So can we get an inside look of what is being a full time healer? What does that look like for you, Bill? And how is that, fulfilling for you, because you made this choice and it's a very big choice. But it seems like you are doing very well at this.
So I like that you asked that. Like, what is it to be a full-time pranic healer? I'll tell you. Um, Here's where it made sense to me. Most people, I think, 40-hour work week is considered full-time. In the fire department, because of our 24-hour shifts, we're considered to work a 56-hour work week. And so at 56 hours, that still leaves you a pretty good chunk of time off with your family, because that's working 1 day out of every 3. And so as our staffing became shorter in the fire department, I started noticing over the last several years, my work week was anywhere from 72 hours to roughly a 96-hour work week. And so with that, I was thinking, boy, if you count the number of hours in a week, if I'm working 96, that's not that many hours off. And so, overtime made a good difference on my paycheck, but it also was very a negative impact on my family time, and also on the healing time that I wanted to do. So part of my mathematical calculation was, how much money do I really need to earn to, to get by, and then to be comfortable. And then, after taking this training with Master Glenn, he was giving us better input as far as how much we should charge. Like, what's a good value for a healing session? And that was a big mind shift for me, because I found out I was way undercharging. And by undercharging, it wasn't just my own poverty consciousness that was coming to affect the session. It was also that the healing quality wasn't as good, because there wasn't as much energy exchange in that process. So after I just changed my session rate to something that was still, within the budget of my clients, but also more comfortable for the quality of the results we were producing, I looked at how many hours do I need to do healing work to make that, to balance out what I was making in the fire department. And I found out that if I do healings for about 4 hours a day for 4 days a week, that pretty much balances what I was making in the fire department as my take home. And so now all of a sudden, instead of a 96-hour work week, I can work a 16 or a 20-hour work week. And now that's actual healing time. So with that, I'm also going to do some of my own practice and my own, self-care. And I'm also going to do some admin stuff. But let's just say I'm working 30 hours a week, for example. That's still a lot less hours than what I was working with the fire department, and doing better service to humanity, doing more healing than just taking people to the ER, or, as the career became just a lot more less acute patients, but a lot more rides to the hospital. So I sat and thought, how can I really serve? How can I really be helpful? And when I answered that question, it was by being a pranic healer, that was going to be more helpful to people. But really, on the practical side of things, when I saw that my healing income at 20 hours a week could be comparable to my you know 72 or 96 hours a week in the fire department, I was like, it's a no-brainer. Now I know what I want to do. Now the difference is I actually had a pretty good client base by then, and that took some time. That took years to build up a good client base. But I tell everybody, start slow. Everyone told me, don't leave your day job until pranic healing makes up for your day job. So you can keep doing your day job and then find the time to do the healings. But I think everyone will get to a point where the pranic healing income will balance out your day job, and then it's time to decide to take that step.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a very solid piece of advice, right? That's almost like the benchmark. If your healing income, meets, equals, or exceeds your day job, like you said, it's a no brainer, and you're working. It sounds like a third less of the hours, right? 30 hours compared to like a 96 that you said. So that's a vast difference in not only hours, but the quality of life, right? And you're doing something that you enjoy, and you're, like you said, you're doing a greater service, and it sounds like this is your calling. And it's a win-win because, speaking about your experience, Bill, like to come from being in the paramedic and seeing all these, patients that just get, it's almost like a roundabout. They go into the hospital, get certain injections, but then next week comes back, and then you like know them by name, and it's this constant loop, and they're not really getting any solution that addresses the root cause of their physical or emotional illness or disease, right? And I think pranic healing is so amazing, like you said, um, to be able to do this full time, right? Truly, with the impact that you're doing. And you mentioned like earning more now because of charging more. And when you charge more, you get a higher quality healing session per client, which is a win-win. And I think that, you kind of hit the nail on the head. A lot of us healers, right, in the beginning, there's kind of stages to it. We don't want to charge at all because we do this out of service, loving kindness. And then when we do charge, it's just like pennies on a dollar for the results that we're getting, right? If you're healing people of cancer, like that's worth something to them, right? That's worth a lot. And it sounds like you've kind of found like a happy medium through pranic healing as a profession, through Master Glenn's guidance, right, to properly charge. And now, like you said, you're riding on a very healthy client base, which for, a lot of healers starting out, it takes time to build. But with Master Choa, one of the virtues is constancy of aim and effort, right? Your results are guaranteed if you follow these steps. Like as he says, follow simple instructions. So building a client base to where you're at is excellent. So thank you for sharing that sort of behind the scenes and look into your life, Bill, because I think a lot of healers are looking to get to where you want to be now. And all we see is like all the challenges and like, okay, when should I leave my job? When, how many clients? But that comes along the way. And I think that pranic healing as a profession is one of those great initiatives that helps us get started.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I wanted to kind of extend this conversation further, Bill. Because now that you're in it, right, you're full time, and it looks like you're hitting that social media hard. I see all your great videos and content being pushed out there. What is sort of the next the next step for you right now that you're a full-time pranic healer? Is this the end all be all, or is there something more to it? What's next?
So I really think that definitely not the end all be all, because I always think there's something more. There's always something more if we're looking for constant improvement, constant growth. What more can we contribute? And so really, this is something I already had in my own mind, but Master Glenn just reaffirmed it, is to support others who also want to become pranic healers. And so, to go back and forth a bit, one of the biggest challenges with me charging more was that I didn't want to be inaccessible to my clients. And yet there were other healers that were just starting out. Maybe they weren't certified yet, or they weren't, maybe they were just associate certified, but not certified pranic healers. those were others that I could refer people to, like, hey, this is somebody else that's doing good healing work. They're charging less, or maybe they're just charging nothing, but you can go to them. I didn't leave anybody hanging. I
Yeah,
always had somebody that they could go to, and then those who were able to pay for more for a more proficient healing, then they could come and have sessions with me. So I wanted to make sure that everybody was served. And so now part of that is in order to build a team, and that was one of the things Master Glenn highly recommended, because he said otherwise you'll get burned out if it's just you doing everything all the time. You will get to a point where you're going to start to wear down. And so putting a team together, which is a way that we have different healers at different levels of experience, different proficiency levels, and not only do we get to support one another and become better at that, but I feel like I also it helps me become better at taking a little bit more of a leadership position because I'm learning as I go, and but it's a way to pass on what I've learned in a way that makes everybody better healers. Um,
sure.
so so really, it's funny because like I've always strived to be better and more. And I look at the masters, I look at Master Co, Master Glenn, and the other masters, and I'm like, okay, in this lifetime, that's probably not going to happen for me. Like that's just such a high level. But there are other senior certified pranic healers, and there are other very high level disciples who are taking on some greater work. And I think, well, maybe someday I would aspire to that. I do know for sure, I just feel inside such a passion to help spread the teachings. Master Choa directed us to spread the teachings, and when he said that, I'm like, okay, that's what I can do. I can help spread the teachings. Someday it may be as an instructor, but I do believe that the my mission in life now is to help in this school to help move the work. It's just a drive that I feel, and it's part of the reason I left the fire department is because I felt that drive so strongly.
Yeah. Really, really inspiring words, Bill. I mean, I think I can resonate with that too. And we look up to all these great teachers, healers. They're like our role models, of course, following Master Choa. And not even within the school of pranic healing, like any great spiritual teacher or any great healer or speaker or a person of influence, right? We always try to like resemble or match or mimic their qualities, their virtues, their service. And I think about that myself, and I think you said it the best. If you can do what your calling is to the best of your ability, um, that is, we are being our own unique puzzle piece to the greater picture of life in this world and service. So same thing for this podcast. It's just a small puzzle piece within the world of pranic healing to get the spread the teachings out there, right? And if this podcast episode with you helps one person, then my job has been completed. I did my job, right? The intention. So I think that's such an amazing way to put it on a bigger picture level, Bill, because at the end of the day, like you said, this is our calling to spread the teachings. As you've seen, miracles happen with pranic healing. And it doesn't even have to be miracles with cancer. It could be miracles with no more stress, no more pain, something as simple as that people take for granted. People take all these medications for. People, like you've seen, call the paramedics, and it's on a weekly basis, it sounds like. That can be such a amazing, significant impact to not only the medical system, right, as we know, but for the entire world. So, Bill, I thank you for sharing your amazing story and journey. It's been really inspiring for me to listen as not only a podcast host, but as a fellow pranic healer and a person that is in the medical field to see this, because it gives me inspiration for what's more to come. So, as we close off this conversation, Bill, any last words of advice for, say, a normal person on the street, curious about pranic healing and knowing about your journey and what we spoke about today? What would be one last piece of word of advice would you give them?
So for the people who are out there, let's say they've never tried pranic healing before and they're sort of curious but skeptical, my advice is maintain skepticism, but just keep an open mind and just wait to see what happens and have your own experience. That's one of the things that helped me resonate early on was when in class they told us be skeptical. That skepticism was encouraged, but to keep an open mind. I needed to hear that. And one thing for me, this is kind of personal for me because I think it resonates with most of the people, at least here in the West, in the United States, for example. Um, Pranic healing has an artistic side and it has a scientific side. For me, being more scientific minded, when I talk to other people about pranic healing, I stick with the science. Master Choa was a scientist, Master Ko, an electrical engineer, Master Glenn, a physician. Like these are scientists who are master pranic healers, and I can talk about the science of pranic healing, and then I find more people have an open mind to that. Now, later on, after we build a rapport, if you want to go into more of the spiritual side, then you can. But for other pranic healers that are talking with people in general, my recommendation is if you can, stick with the science early on because you'll build a better receptivity with the people you're working on, at least in our area here.
Yeah. Wonderful. Skepticism, but being open-minded, as Master Cho said, having accurate perception is so important nowadays. Don't believe anything blindly. And Master Cho encourages too, when you take the class, try it for yourself. It's like an experiment, right? If you get the results, then it works. And also number two, to what you said, it's really a science, right? And professionals like us that may be more objective and more left-brained, we can appreciate sharing the science, right? Because it is grounded and it's not, airy fairy that the New Age movement and energy healing can be stigmatized as. But I love that because that's the one difference that separates our school, Pranic Healing, versus other schools. Not that other schools are bad. We just have such an amazing teacher that has set the system up the right way for success into the future, being it science-based, objective, but also being art as well, because with everything, it takes practice to get better at. So, thank you so much, Bill. We will leave all of Bill's contact information and social media down below if you want to get in touch with Bill for a consultation or healing. And Bill, it's been such a wonderful conversation. Thank you so much for sharing your experience. Again, it's been inspiring for not only me, but many, many people out there who are looking to do the exact same thing that you did. Almost feels like a leap of faith, but once you're on the other side, things still move, things are still good and moving forward too. So thank you so much for that, Bill. Well, thank you everyone for listening to this episode of the Pranic Healing Podcast. If you've enjoyed this episode, please leave a like and comment down below. And if you've really enjoyed today's episode, we would appreciate if you subscribe and support the podcast, as your donations help keep the podcast running and have great guests like Bill come on and speak about their amazing experience in pranic healing. So, Atma Namaste, everyone. Thank you for listening, and we hope to see you in the next podcast. Thank you, Bill.
Thank you. Have a great day.